Sophia's fingers brushed against mine. A slow, deliberate touch. James's grip on my waist tightened. His breath shallow. Michael walked ahead, throwing me a knowing glance over his shoulder. The private room at the Velvet Lounge was just steps away, bathed in golden light, with mirrored walls and quiet murmurs dissolving into something deeper. No more doubts. No hesitation. Just a single step before everything changed. James's hands moved over me with practiced ease, the touch familiar, his body pressing against mine. It was effortless. Too effortless. Like a routine we both knew by heart. I closed my eyes, letting myself feel the warmth of his skin, the way his fingers gripped my waist, the steady rhythm of his breath growing heavier as he moved faster, chasing that inevitable release. My body responded because it always did. But it wasn't us anymore. No whispered words. No lingering kisses. No urgency like before. He used to look at me like I was his greatest desire. Like he couldn't get enough. Now it felt like just another part of his day. Something to check off before rolling over and falling asleep. When it was over. That's exactly what he did, a breath. A quick kiss on my shoulder. Then he turned away in silence. I lay there, my skin still tingling, my body satisfied, but my heart hollow. I wasn't unloved, but I wasn't needed either, and that was worse. Turning my head, I watched James sleep, his face calm, his breathing deep and steady. A quiet ache settled in my chest. I had everything I was supposed to want a good man. A stable marriage, a body that was still touched. So why did it feel like I was missing something? We were young, supposed to still be wild for each other. In some ways, we still touched, kissed, had nights tangled in each other's arms. But something had changed. The urgency was gone, the heat, the need. It wasn't obvious at first. It crept in slowly the way James's hands felt familiar, but not desperate. The way he kissed me like it was just another habit. I told myself it was normal, that passion fades, that routine takes over. But deep down, I knew better. It was the little things, the way he worked late more often, the way his phone was always close, the subtle way he turned it over when I walked into the room, the scent of something unfamiliar lingering on his clothes, something I couldn't quite place. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was being paranoid, reading too much into things that didn't matter. Then, late that night, James's phone buzzed. He was asleep beside me, chest rising and falling in steady rhythm, completely unaware as I turned my head toward the glow of the screen. My eyes landed on the message. Looking forward to seeing you tonight. Same place, same rules. A slow chill crept down my spine. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't in my head. For the first time, I had proof. I barely slept. The message haunted me, looping in my mind, each word twisting deeper. Same place, same rules. It wasn't innocent. It was routine, his routine. By morning, I knew what I had to do. Confronting James was pointless. He'd lie, deflect, make excuses. I needed the truth. So, when he left that evening, I followed. He drove with purpose, weaving through the streets of Manhattan. His route too precise for this to be the first time. When he stopped, I parked at a distance, my fingers gripping the wheel as I took in the Velvet Lounge, a sleek, upscale nightclub in the heart of the city, its neon sign glowing softly against the dark facade. It wasn't a dive bar, wasn't a hotel, and James walked in like he belonged there. My pulse pounded, my breath shallow. For a second, I hesitated, then pushed forward, my legs carrying me toward the entrance before fear could stop me. The moment I stepped inside the Velvet Lounge, I felt it something electric in the air. Low music thrummed through the space, blending with murmured conversations and soft laughter. The lighting was warm, intimate, casting long shadows over plush velvet seating and polished chrome decor. But it wasn't the atmosphere that made my stomach tighten. It was the people. They weren't just close, they were too close. Hands lingered on bare skin, lips brushed against ears, whispered words exchanged like promises. A woman leaned into a man's lap across the room, her dress slipping high on her thigh. Another couple disappeared behind a velvet curtain, their laughter dissolving into something else. Then I saw him across the room at the bar. James stood with Sophia, laughing, leaning in close, her fingers grazing his arm. He wasn't pulling away. He wasn't stopping her. If anything, he looked like he belonged here too. My breath caught, my feet frozen in place. I had followed him for the truth, and now I wasn't sure I was ready for it. My pulse pounded in my ears, drowning out the low hum of conversation. James stood across the room, his body angled towards Sophia, their heads close, their movements easy, too easy. He wasn't just talking, he was engaged, comfortable, like this wasn't new. A sharp breath caught in my throat, my fingers curling at my side. I had come for answers, and now I had them. I took a step forward, ready to close the distance, to say something, anything, when a voice stopped me cold. Ah, finally. He brought you too. I turned sharply, my heart lurching. Michael stood beside me, his expression amused, his eyes sweeping over me like he knew exactly why I was here. Recognition flickered across his face, but not surprise. He wasn't shocked to see me. If anything, he looked pleased. Took him long enough, he murmured, taking a slow sip of his drink. My breath hitched, my thoughts scrambled. Before I could react, Michael placed a hand lightly on my back, guiding me forward. My anger twisted into something else entirely. James had been keeping this from me, but if this was his secret, maybe it should have been ours. I held James's gaze, stepping closer as Michael guided me toward him. Sophia blinked, her lips parting as if she were about to say something, but I got there first. So, I murmured, trailing a finger down James's chest. Show me what secrets you're keeping. His throat bobbed, his grip tightening around his drink. He was caught, yet there was no guilt in his eyes, no excuses forming on his lips, just hesitation, like he wasn't sure whether to explain himself or surrender. Michael chuckled, his voice edged with amusement. I like her, he said, setting his glass down, glancing between us. She gets it. And I did. I should have been furious, should have stormed out. But standing there in the dim heat of the Velvet Lounge, surrounded by pleasure and possibility, all I felt was a slow, creeping burn of anticipation. I stepped even closer, placing a hand on James's chest, feeling his heartbeat quicken beneath my palm. "You should have told me, James," I whispered, letting my nails drag lightly against the fabric of his shirt. "We could have been enjoying this together." His breath hitched. The air shifted, charged, waiting. Around us, others moved in their own worlds, hands wandering, mouths meeting, soft moans swallowed by the music. No one was watching, and yet I had never felt more seen. I tilted my head, looking up at James through my lashes. "Are you going to let me in?" Before he could answer, hands found me warm, confident, mapping over my waist, my back, my shoulders. I shivered at the sensation. Another body pressed closer, a different heat, a different presence. "Michael." "I think she already knows the answer," he murmured, his lips grazing my ear. Then James moved. He grabbed my wrist, pulled me flush against him, and crushed his mouth against mine. The kiss was deep, desperate, claiming, as if he had been holding himself back for too long and finally let go. I melted into him. But the moment I did, another pair of hands explored me, Michael, his fingers tracing down my arms, slow and deliberate. Then softer touches Sophia. She was close now, her perfume mixing with the heat of the room, her fingers teasing the strap of my dress. I exhaled a shaky breath, my pulse racing. "Look at her," Michael murmured, his voice thick with approval. She was made for this. James groaned against my lips, his hands tightening on my waist, and I knew he wasn't stopping this. None of us were. A thrill ran down my spine as Michael turned me toward him. His gaze dark, heavy. His fingers traced along my collarbone, his lips hovering just above mine. Testing, waiting. I didn't hesitate. I closed the space between us. And just like that, the night truly began. A hand slid into mine, firm, insistent, guiding me toward the back of the velvet lounge. James walked beside me, silent, watchful, his jaw tight with something between restraint and surrender. Behind us, Michael and Sophia followed, their presence a steady hum against my skin. The private room was different, more intimate, the air heavy with the scent of warmth and lingering perfume. Plush seating lined the walls, the dim golden lighting casting long, shifting shadows. Floor-to-ceiling mirrors reflected the room's quiet indulgence, bodies moving together. Whispered words exchanged, quiet laughter dissolving into something deeper. I felt James's grip tighten on my waist, his breath unsteady, as if he had just realized the weight of what was happening. His lips hovered at my ear. "You didn't think I'd want this." I cut him off, trailing my fingers down his chest, feeling the tension coiled beneath his shirt. "Or you didn't want to share, James?" A sharp exhale. His hesitation wasn't reluctance, it was restraint. A second warmth pressed against my back, a slow, confident touch tracing my bare shoulder. Michael. His fingers brushed down my arm, his voice a low murmur against my ear. "She's already one of us." I felt movement beside me. Sophia stepped closer, her gaze flicking over me with something unreadable, something knowing. But she wasn't hesitant. Her fingers found the strap of my dress, sliding it down just enough to expose the bare skin beneath. She smiled. "You embody temptation well." "Emma," I shivered, but not from the cold. James watched, his jaw clenched, his hand still at my waist. But he didn't stop this. He didn't stop me. The shift was instant. His mouth found mine, urgent, searching, his grip tightening, pulling me closer, his fingers skimming over the newly exposed skin, rediscovering me in a way he hadn't dared before. But then other hands, a second pair, rougher, bolder, moving over the curve of my back, guiding me between them. Michael. His lips hovered near my jaw, his breath warm as he chuckled softly. You don't seem nervous. Emma, I wasn't. A third presence, softer. Teasing fingertips skimmed my stomach, tracing the lace of my dress, pushing fabric aside just enough to set my skin on fire. Sophia's lips brushed my neck, her voice a whisper. She likes this, and I did. I let them guide me, let them explore, let them push boundaries I thought I'd never cross. Heat pooled deep in my stomach as my body moved with theirs, giving in to the rhythm of soft gasps, teasing touches, lingering glances. James's breathing was uneven, his hands desperate now, gripping my waist like he needed to remind himself I was his. God, he groaned, his lips trailing down my throat. You like watching, don't you? Emma, I whispered, turning just enough to see his eyes. Dark, unreadable. His only answer was a sharper grip, his body pressing into mine. More hands, more lips, more pleasure layered over pleasure, teasing, testing, building higher. Let go, someone murmured against my skin. So I did. When the tension finally snapped, sending me spiraling into something unstoppable, I knew I had never felt so alive. As I lay back, breathless, James's arms around me, I felt lingering kisses against my skin, soft touches that made me shiver even in the aftermath. Michael smirked, brushing a strand of hair from my face. You fit right in, Emma. I laughed, breathless, satisfied, because he was right. I had come to the Velvet Lounge searching for answers. Instead, I had found something I never wanted to give up. The days that followed were a blur of new sensations. James and I didn't talk about that night at first, not directly. But the air between us had shifted, charged with a current that hadn't been there in years. His touch lingered longer in the mornings, his fingers brushing my arm as he poured coffee, his eyes catching mine with a spark of something raw. We were no longer just a married couple going through the motions. We were partners in a secret, a shared rebellion against the monotony that had crept into our lives. A week later, a text arrived from an unknown number. Velvet Lounge, Friday. Same time. I showed it to James, expecting hesitation, but his lips curved into a slow smile. You want to go? He asked, his voice low, testing. I didn't answer with words. I stepped closer, kissed him deeply, and felt his hands tighten on my hips. That was answer enough. Friday night. We returned to the Velvet Lounge. The neon sign glowed brighter in my memory, the streets of Manhattan buzzing with the energy of a city that never slept. Inside, the same electric hum greeted us, low music, warm lighting, the scent of expensive perfume. Michael was there, leaning against the bar, his eyes finding us the moment we walked in. Sophia stood beside him, her dress clinging to her curves, her smile inviting. "Back for more?" she asked, her voice teasing as she handed me a glass of champagne. I took it, my fingers brushing hers, and felt the same thrill from that first night. James's hand rested on my lower back, steady but possessive, as if he wanted to remind everyone I was his. But there was no jealousy in his touch, only anticipation. We moved to the private room again, the mirrored walls reflecting our silhouettes as we sank into the plush seating. Michael's voice was a low murmur, guiding the night, while Sophia's hands were bolder this time, tracing patterns on my skin that made my breath catch. The nights at the Velvet Lounge became a ritual. Every few weeks, we'd return, each visit peeling back another layer of restraint. James and I grew closer, not just in those heated moments, but in the quiet ones too. We talked more, laughed more, shared secrets we'd buried under years of routine. The distance that had once threatened to swallow us was gone, replaced by a hunger that felt endless, but it wasn't all euphoria. Late at night, when James slept beside me, doubts crept in. Was this who we were now? A couple who chased thrills in dimly lit rooms, surrounded by strangers who felt like lovers. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling of our Upper West Side apartment, wondering if we were running from something or toward it. The Velvet Lounge had awakened us, but it had also changed us. I wasn't sure if I was afraid of losing what we'd found or terrified of needing it too much. One evening, as we left the club, James stopped me on the sidewalk, the city lights casting shadows across his face. "Emma," he said, his voice softer than I'd heard in years. "Are you okay with this? With us?" His eyes searched mine, vulnerable in a way he hadn't been since our early days. I took his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin, the steady pulse beneath it. "I don't know what okay means anymore," I admitted, "but I know I feel alive with you. I don't want to lose that." He pulled me close, his lips brushing my forehead. "We won't," he whispered. "This is us now." But the Velvet Lounge wasn't just about us. Michael and Sophia became fixtures in our lives, their presence weaving into our story. Michael, with his sharp wit and commanding ease, invited us to private parties at his penthouse in Tribeca, where the rules were looser, the nights longer. Sophia, with her knowing smiles and gentle touches, became someone I confided in, her words grounding me when the intensity overwhelmed me. They weren't just part of our secret, they were part of us. One night, months later, we sat in Michael's penthouse, the city skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. The room was filled with other strangers who felt familiar, their laughter and touches blending into the haze of wine and candlelight. James sat beside me, his hand resting on my thigh, his thumb tracing slow circles. Sophia leaned in, her lips close to my ear. "You've changed him," she whispered. "He's not just here for the thrill anymore. He's here for you." I looked at James, his eyes locked on mine, and felt a warmth that went beyond desire. This wasn't just about crossing lines. It was about finding each other again, in a way we never could have without the Velvet Lounge. But Sophia's words lingered, a reminder that this life came with a cost. We weren't the same couple who had married 5 years ago, promising forever in a church upstate. We were something new, something wilder, and I wasn't sure if that was freedom or a cage we'd built together. The next morning, I woke to James watching me, his expression soft but serious. "What happens if we stop?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "If we walk away from this, from them?" I didn't have an answer. The thought of leaving the Velvet Lounge, of closing that door, felt like losing a part of myself, but the idea of needing it forever scared me more. I reached for his hand, lacing my fingers through his. "We don't have to decide now," I said. "But whatever we do it together." He nodded, pulling me into his arms, and for a moment, the doubts faded. We were Emma and James, not just a couple but a force, bound by something deeper than vows. The Velvet Lounge had shown us what we could be, but it was up to us to decide what came next. Months turned into a year. The invitations kept coming, each one a siren call to the life we'd embraced. We went less often, testing the waters of normalcy, but the pull was always there. One night, as we dressed for another evening at the Velvet Lounge, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me was confident, alive, but there was a shadow in her eyes, a question that hadn't been there before. "James," I said, turning to him as he adjusted his tie. "Do you ever miss how things were before all this?" He paused, his hands stilling, then crossed the room to stand behind me, his arms wrapping around my waist. "I miss the simplicity sometimes," he admitted, his breath warm against my neck. "But I don't miss feeling like I was losing you. This," he gestured vaguely. Encompassing everything from the club to the nights we'd shared, this brought us back. I leaned into him, feeling the truth in his words. The Velvet Lounge hadn't just saved us, it had rewritten us. But as we stepped into the Manhattan night, the city's pulse thrumming around us, I knew we'd have to face the question eventually, could we keep this fire burning without it consuming us? For now, we walked hand in hand toward the Velvet Lounge, the neon sign glowing like a beacon. Michael and Sophia would be waiting, along with the promise of another night where boundaries blurred and desire reigned. I didn't know if this was forever, but it was ours, and that was enough. Some lines shouldn't be crossed, or should they? Was this a reckless mistake or the best decision I ever made? Only time would tell, but as James's fingers tightened around mine, I felt ready for whatever came next.